Hey everyone, hopefully everybody had a nice holiday, nice New Year's. I know I did. It's the first weekend in about 7 or 8 weeks that I don't have something going on, trying to lose some weight, eating all that holiday food. But I'm glad to finally get back and try to record some more stuff, share some more stuff with you. One of the things I wanted to talk about was kind of getting some patterns going. I know it's kind of a bad term to use, patterns, because then it sounds like you're just kind of playing a shape and not really knowing what it is. So what I'm trying to show today is more or less like how to take something that is technically a shape and turn it into something cool and musical. You think of, pentatonic scale is a shape. And so once you get that, you don't want to get caught in that rut of just playing that same thing over and over again. But this particular idea is something that I actually used in a coinmonster song. But when I used it, I didn't really know all the other cool stuff that I could do with it. The scale I want to talk about is the half-whole diminished scale. Basically, all the half-whole diminished scale is a rotating pattern of half steps and whole steps. So let's say you're in D, and this is kind of I recorded a loop, and I'll use that to show some examples. But this chord is a D7 flat 9 chord. And all those notes that I'm going to describe here are in that particular chord. So if you start at D, you start with a D to a half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, and back to D. And the chords that you can make out of that, because you've got if you're in the key of D, you've got a minor third, you have a major third, you have a perfect fifth, you have a flat fifth, you have a minor 7, and you have the sixth in there as well. So there are endless possibilities of things you can do there. But one of the cool things about it, it has the certain flavor. It fits really well over seventh chords. So if you got D7, 13, and then any of the 9 varieties, like the 7 sharp 9, like your standard, and the chord that I showed you at the beginning, which is the 7 flat 9 chord. The coolest thing about this is the pattern is completely, once you start playing around with these notes and you get to learn it's just half step, whole step, half step, whole step, you can jump over those patterns and you can say, okay, this is a minor third and then another minor third on top. I'm only going to focus on the last 4 strings. So I'm only going to focus on the D, G, B, and E string. You can take this scale all the way down, but the way that I've been kind of having fun with it is really just kind of soloing over this block pattern. And think of a pentatonic scale like we talked about earlier. If I have a D, any of those chords that I mentioned before, if you're more comfortable just playing D7, that's totally fine. I like it over the D7 flat 9 because a little jazzier feel to it. Little Beatles flair. Anyhow, if you're in the 7th position, so here's D, so you start on A in the 7th fret and play a minor third, then move to the next string, minor third, next string, minor third, next string, minor third. Now you've gone a couple of different range of emotions there. You've got a minor sound. You go into that flat 7, kind of sounds minorish. That's definitely sounds minor because it's a minor third from D. That's a minor chord, starting to be. There's your major third, and then which almost sounds like D major. So you're mixing D major and D minor in, and we'll go over the notes in the middle too, but let's just focus on the. And you just you can take that whole pattern and move it up a minor third. And down a minor third. So here's a little loop that I recorded, and excuse me while I reach over to this thing, but this is basically just a little jam using that D7 minor 9 chord, or flat 9 chord, sorry. And I'll just use those notes that we talked about earlier. Was really that block pattern of just those pentatonic, or not pentatonic notes, but those minor thirds. And it sounds pretty jazzy, kind of cool. And you can use those over any of those 7 chords that I mentioned before. I mean, oftentimes when you're, if you're jamming with your buddies, or you get called up on stage at, it's blues night at the local watering hole, and somebody's like, all right, we're going to do this jam in D. And you're tempted to play all the blues scale and stuff. You can. That's totally fine. But when you're jamming along, all of a sudden, throw one of those little riffs in there. It's like, whoa. Sounds like you got a lot more spice on your food. So now that we've covered that, I want to talk about the other notes that you add in the middle of that, okay? Because I'm kind of jumping over notes. I'm just playing these minor third patterns here. I'm leaving out the notes in the middle, okay? And I did that on purpose because I just want to kind of talk about the basic shape, and that's kind of brings it all home to what this was all about. Really was just having a shape, and then looking at that shape and saying, oh, what can I do with this? I mean, even with that 4-string pattern of just minor thirds, you could play intervals, I'll put the loop back on so you can hear it. Let's add in those other notes. Here's another pattern. So in this particular, you start on the first one that starts on the D string, on the 7th fret, the A note on the D string. You go whole step, half step. Next string, do half step, whole step. Whole step, half step again. And then the last one is half step, whole step again. And that whole thing could be moved up. And this is where it really opens up, where you can have a combination of all these different intervals in there, and I mean, it gets really crazy, and it's fun, and it's simple. It's just a pattern. But the cool thing, and I like to stress this, like when you come upon one of these patterns, and you're really digging how it sounds, do your best to find out what it really means. You know, I mean, when I went to high school, I went to one of the few high schools that taught music theory class, and I was very fortunate for that because I learned a ton. And then when I got to college, man, I knew my stuff, and everybody hated me for it. But music theory is awesome, but I wouldn't try to base your playing around, don't be thinking about music theory when you're playing stuff. Jam on this stuff and find something. This stuff may all sound like crap to you, but if you find one little piece in there that sounds cool, then that's what you're going to do when you're playing live. You're not going to be sitting there going, oh shit, D7 flat 9. All right, no, I need to play this minor third and over that. Listen, that's cool. I love music theory. There's so much to learn. There's so much I don't know, obviously, as you can tell by hearing me play. I'll stop yapping and try to make it happen. So here's the notes I talked about one more time. 4th string, okay? The D string, sorry. And starting on the 7th position. So it's whole step, half step, then half step, whole step, half step, whole step. And this pattern can go down a third or up a third. And this is what it sounds like. Listen, major third triads, listen. Basically, the idea behind that is mixing up all these different patterns and notes, and that's just the same chord progression over and over again. I understand that. I mean, there's a lot more you can do with this. A song where you can get a good example of this, and by no means am I trying to put my name in the same category as Jimmy Herring, but Jimmy Herring is almost the perfect guitar player in my eyes. But there's a song called Scapegoat Blues on the Lifeboat album. Just Google it, or you look it up on YouTube. The intro is crazy. It's like a Steve Morse. I don't even know how to explain it. The guy's just really he's like otherworldly. But in the main phrase of the song, he's doing stuff like that. Like he's playing these 7 sharp 9 chords. He does them differently, and I read an article on how he's doing it. But it's like he's doing the same idea. Whenever these guys land on a 7th chord or a 7 sharp 9, 7 flat 9, 13, you can substitute that stuff in there. And I've been using it a lot lately, and I've been wanting to share it. And you know, if you ever see me play live again, you're probably going to hear it somewhere in there. And it might even be in a spot where you wouldn't normally hear it, like in an Allman Brothers song, where it's probably not going to fit, but I'm going to do my best to make it fit. Anyhow, I did mention that I use it in Amateur Smut Writer for coinmonster, so let me grab that guitar and I will show you what I'm talking about. That is close enough for rock and roll. Amateur Smut Writer. There is a section that kind of sounds like a little bit of a hoedown there. Now, if I break this down for you, it's basically the same thing that I just showed you with the other guitar, but this is no, this guitar is a fifth down, so this would be A. So, but here's the tapping. I mean, I'm going that minor third pattern that I showed you on the other guitar. Except I'm doing it with tapping. So on and so forth. And then in solo, I use the same ideas I talked about in the last section. I take everything up a minor third and keep on going. Same thing we just talked about, going up minor thirds. So hopefully you pick something up out of this. Please, if you do, or if you have any questions, leave them here. Ask me some questions to answer for next time, please. I'd love to hear from you. I know I got a lot of questions about tapping and stuff like that, and anything you want to know, please just put some comments below, questions or whatever, and hopefully I can get something up a lot sooner than a month. Have a good rest of the week. Hopefully I'll do something soon, maybe even middle of the week. Who knows? Take care. This little section I like to do at the end, just something I like, where I talk about what kind of stuff I'm listening to, and this particular week I've been really jamming on Music of My Mind by Stevie Wonder. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this album, but this was the one that kind of kicked him into that classic 70s Stevie Wonder phase. Intervisions and all that stuff. This album is it's great, and he plays everything on it except for guitar on one song, I think, and some keyboards. But it's silly. So that's the album that I've been pretty much jamming on this week. As far as other guitar players go, I'd like to have a little section at the end of this too to talk about other guitar players. There's a guy I stumbled on a while ago. I am only recently now talking to you about him, but he's got a YouTube channel. This guy's name is Tom Bukovac, and he is unbelievable. Now, when I say unbelievable, you know, I think like Alan Holdsworth is unbelievable. You know, Guthrie Govan is unbelievable. You know, Paul Gilbert, unbelievable. This guy, he's from Cleveland, but I'm kind of curious. I don't know how long. He's a big Nashville session guy. He's played on tons of stuff. He's toured with Joe Walsh. And check out his YouTube channel. It's called Homeschooling. And he has like 80-some episodes that he's done throughout this pandemic where he just sits in his garage, basically kind of like this, except in his garage with all this unreal gear. And he uses a phone, just like this. And the sound quality is, his tone is always fantastic. He doesn't use anything fancy, and he never ever screws up, it seems. I mean, he's a studio guy, so he's probably got that in his head to never screw up. But it's like he never plays the wrong stuff. You won't see him do a lot of shredding stuff, but you know he can. One of those kind of guys. That's why I say he's scary. You know, he's one of those guys that you see him back there doing his thing, you know he could probably rip your face off if he had to. So check it out. Homeschooling, Tom Bukovac, Cleveland native. That's why I'm curious to see when he moved from Cleveland to Tennessee. I don't know if maybe we ever touched, crossed paths, or probably played on the same stage somewhere. He's from Cleveland, and apparently he played there since he was like a little kid. So that's it. Take care.